Hey guys, I want to talk about there's an argument between whether you should rent or buy a home. Um, Typically, based on the research I have done, um, if the home is under 150,000, it's usually better to buy. If it's over 350, it's usually better to rent. Um, But in my situation, I mean, my rent was only 500 or actually less than 500 a month. And if I would have bought a house, my rent would probably be closer to 1,500 or 2,000 a month. And which means that I could use the extra, um, 1,000 to 1,500 a month to invest and get a higher return and turn that 1,500 into 6,000 or so. Turn it into more money. Um, so over the long run, I mean, basically the only difference in wealth in America, the main difference is home ownership. Um, and someone's been renting their whole life, and when they're 65 years old, they got zero, and then whereas if um, you got a paid for house, after 65 years of paying a mortgage, maybe you got $300,000. Um, so that's the difference in the wealth in America. So I mean, over the long run, it's always going to be better to purchase a home. But for me, in the short run, and I never expected to be here 10 years or longer. Um, if I had to do it all over again, I could have bought a house when I was in the military. By now, I'd probably be on my second or third house, have all of them paid for by the rent, and sitting on $1 million in real estate probably. But but that's early morning quarterback stuff because there's also risk involved too. Because if I had had a mortgage and then I couldn't find any renters, or COVID happened and the renters don't even have to pay rent for years, you still got to pay that mortgage no matter what, whether your renters are paying you or not. So I'm sure a lot of people got in trouble if you owned 6 or 7 houses and all of a sudden your renters stop paying rent. You're still liable for those 6 or 7 mortgages every month. So, but anyway, for me, I believe renting was better just because I could take that $1,000 a month or whatever it was I was saving and turn it into 1,500, turn it into 2,000 or more, and to me that was a better allocation of resources than buying a home. But if you're paying 7% more, if you're paying 7% interest, and you think you can get 20%. I mean, if you're getting 20%, you're going to make more money than than what you would have if you were paying a mortgage or whatever. I don't know if this makes any sense to anybody, but in my mind, that was the reason why I chose to rent and why I chose to rent so long. I mean, $500 a month rent is very cheap. I mean, I'm staying in a crap hole, but I would rather have an extra $1,500, an extra $2,000 a month to play with than if I had a nicer home or a nice place to stay and I did not have that money to invest, because the money that I can save and invest is going to be, I'm going to get a better return on my money than if it was just going to pay the rent or the mortgage. So that's my theory. That's why I chose to do it this way. But again, in the long run, it's always going to be better to have a home and have a paid for home. And like I said, that's the biggest difference in the wealth in America. And I've said this before, but a big misconception is most wealth in this country is first generation. They are teachers. They are engineers. They are just average day people that just happen to make $50,000 a year, and they save 25% of their income, and they invested in a Roth or 401k or whatever, and they just live modestly. They live below their means, and a lot of times you would never know it. That story of Ronald Reed, who was a janitor and had $8 million. If a janitor that probably never made more than $10 an hour in his life can amass an $8 million fortune, what's your excuse? We have no excuse. Anybody in this country can be a millionaire. I don't care if you're making minimum wage. I don't care if you're picking up cans on the side of the road. Anybody in this country has the ability to be a millionaire, a multimillionaire. All it takes is a little bit of dedication and hard work and time and quality investments. And it's better to make 2 or 3% return than lose everything. So I mean, Warren Buffett's rule number 1 is never lose money, and rule number 2 is never don't forget rule number 1. So of course, it's always better to make a higher return if you can. If you can make 15 or 20% return, that's great. But just make sure that you are making good decisions on your investments. Because if all your money's in Dogecoin, watch out. If all your money's in Bitcoin, watch out. Have some, be invested in some companies that are going to be around for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And if you don't know which company is going to be around, invest in the biggest 500 companies in America. And you can't go wrong. I can guarantee you Coca-Cola is going to be around 100 years from now. Anyway, thank you for listening.